Good evening, Rangers. Welcome to Crotoni Entertainment. I'm Chris, and today we're going to get right into our project. The most badass character in all of Power Rangers. It's going to be Lord Zedd. So let's get started on this bad boy and get rolling right away. First thing we're going to do is start with this Squid Pink, and we're going to start with our Kislev flesh from GW. We're going to do this Squid Pink all over his brain, and then we're going to go ahead and do that Kislev flesh all over his body. We're going to just slather it on, cover it up. Very wet brush, dipped right into the Kislev. We're not worried about his, metallic parts or anything else. We just want to get this all over Zedd's body. Why? Because it's going to provide an excellent base for making the red that is Zedd. And yes, it's going to be hard for me to do this video without some joking rhymes, and I apologize because they're really bad jokes, and they're not really going to work. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get this all over here. Zedd, I mean, come on, guys, it's Zedd. He's one of the coolest characters ever to come out of Power Rangers. Really cool design. I believe American only. I don't think he exists in the Japanese. Really frightening dude. Apparently some kind of bondage fetish going on, but hey, to each his own. Let's rock on. So we're going to get this all on. We're going to set him down. We're going to go for any touch-ups, any spots we missed, and we're just going to go ahead and let the model dry. And we're going to come back to him, and we're going to say, okay, it's time to move into the next step, which is going to be our Citadel contrast, Blood Angels Red. And this is just like any contrast paint. We're just going to use a very heavy coat of it right out of the pot. We're not going to worry about obscuring details because it's thin enough that it won't. Take our medium brush, and we're just going to put this all over like a heavy wash, all over this Kislev flesh. And like any contrast paint, what this is going to do is the heaviest pigment is going to go ahead and seep into the lowest areas of the model, and the highest areas of the model are going to get a very small amount of pigment, or a very small amount of this, effectively a stain. And what that's going to do is some of that built-in yellow in the Kislev flesh is going to continue sticking out, and it's going to kind of alter the color of that red, so as opposed to when we put it over a gray or we put it over a white. And just as a reminder again, I'm using the same primer that I always do. It's the Rustoleum 2X matte perfect gray. It takes contrast very well. It's a neutral color that doesn't really darken up or brighten up my miniatures too much. Just a fantastic primer. So, as you can see, we've been pretty sloppy about this whole thing. We're just going over everything, and we're going to include his brain in there. So we'll cover the brain with that Blood Angels Red as well, and we're going to come back after we let this dry. So we got Zedd nice and dry here. We're going to move on to Citadel base of the Fang, and you'll see I'm also repainting the brain because after the contrast paint dried, I really wasn't happy with the result on the brain. So we're going to try that again with a different color. So we've got the Fang, and the Fang is going to be for all these tubes that run all up and down Zedd's army. You can see I made a little boo-boo there, got it on top of his body. Real simple thing to fix. Just dip my brush in water, way more water than paint. It kind of turns the paint into almost a wash, and then lets me sop it up with the brush and get it off there while it's still wet. Otherwise, we're just going to take a real thin paintbrush, and we're just going to move real carefully around the miniature, and we're going to go ahead and just trace the lines of these tubes. And a lot of them, it's going to take two traces, one on one side, one on the other, because I'm not putting the brush, in most cases, dead on top of the tube. I'm doing it at a slight angle. I apologize for the poor camera work in this one. I think I'm going to have to find another new position to mount my camera, and this particular mini has a very wide base and some small details on the legs that it's kind of hard to get into a position where I'm able to paint it and show it to you without my hand taking up way too much of the frame. But we're going to do our best on this and just suffer through it here. You see I kind of shift the base around a few times trying to figure out how to make sure the camera can actually see what I'm doing. But it's a pretty simple technique. Just follow it all along. Just a little bit of patience, a really thin brush, and just, nice and slow. You'll see my brush disappears off camera quite a bit. It's because I'm re-wetting it with a little bit of water and it's going back in the Fang. You'll see under that right arm there, I made a boo-boo as well. I missed some of the red. We're going to go back and correct that off camera. But once that's all dry, we're going to pull out our Citadel shade Carroburg Crimson, and that's going to be what we go ahead and put over the brain this time. It's a wash rather than a contrast paint, so it's got lighter pigment, and it's going to flow into the recesses better without staining the highest parts of the brain. So when that dries, the brain is something I'm now happy with. It's a little brighter than you probably see on the show, but that's kind of what I like. Moving to the Stormhost Silver for all the metallic parts. I'm not going to show this on camera. I apologize, guys. It's very complicated to get the brush into all those spots while still, viewing it through the camera. So we're just going to jump to it completely done. It's the same technique as the tubes, just very slowly, work through each piece. Try to be as careful as you can. Try not to get it onto the red if possible. But it goes down his spine, all, the braces up and down his legs, up and down his arms, his face mask. All of that is just one solid coat of this Citadel Stormhost Silver, which leads us into the Citadel Shade Nuln Oil Gloss. I specifically picked the gloss on this one because I kind of want the metal to still be very shiny at the end of this, especially because one thing I do is I do a matte varnish on my miniatures when I'm done. For this miniature, I'm going to actually be using a paint-on, so I don't have to varnish the metal because there's a lot of metal. But this gloss wash will give me a nice shiny sheen to the metal when it's all finished. And I'm just going to slowly paint this wash right on top of the metallic areas of Lord Zedd. You can kind of see it's running a little bit off to the sides and creating a separation between the red muscle and the metallic parts, and as I go up the spine and his metallic bikini bottom there, or whatever you call that, you see it's going down to the recesses, creating a lot of depth for us. And as we go around his face mask, you can really see it gets into the recesses. It creates our depth for us in a single coat. We don't have to do anything fancy. Remember, guys, I'm all about everyman painting, something somebody can do in just a couple of minutes without any real skill, as we continue to paint this Nuln Oil Gloss on Zedd's staff. And through the miracle of editing, this will take almost no time at all. So once this all dries up, there's only a few details left to finish our Zedd, and we go back to our Citadel Contrast Blood Angels Red. We're going to use this on his visor. I didn't do his visor red earlier for a couple of reasons. One, it's just easier to paint his whole face mask silver than try to avoid hitting the visor. And two, the silver underneath the red is going to give a little bit of a metallic sheen to the red, so it kind of looks like a metallic visor. It's kind of a cool look that I'm a big fan of. So it's only going to take a minute or two to dry, and we're going to move on to our Citadel base Abaddon Black. If you watched any of the videos, you know exactly what I'm going to do with this. Well, first I'm going to knock it over, but you know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to really wet my brush, like super wet, and I'm going to dip it in this Abaddon Black, and I'm just going to spread it all over the base. Unlike the Rangers, I've decided to do complete black bases for all of my monsters, bosses, foot soldiers, all of that. So once we get the black all over the top of this base, we're going to let it, dry momentarily and get that black paint off of our fingers, and then come back and do this, rim of the base here and just paint all around it. We're going to let it dry. Zedd is all finished up. Took barely any time at all, even less than magic of editing. Please like and subscribe if this video helped you at all. Come back next Monday for another Morphin Monday video. I really appreciate you watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. And for those of you who are new, thanks for watching today. Have a good night.